Hi everyone, it's Jenny here from Jenny Wren Designs, and today we're going to look at arranging some silk flowers on this lovely willow wreath here. Now we're going to actually use Oasis. There are two types of Oasis that you can get. One is the normal standard green Oasis. This is mainly used for fresh flowers. You normally soak it in water and then you arrange your fresh flowers. If you use this for dried flowers, it tends to crumble and break apart. So the best choice is actually dried flower Oasis. Now it's normally this sort of grey brown colour and it's a completely different texture and you don't need to put it in water. Simply cut it to size and then attach it to your wreath. I've covered it with a bit of moss here and I've also just secured it by a cable tie. That's simple, and now we're ready to start arranging. So I've got my silk flowers here ready, and as with fresh flowers it's really important to prepare your flowers before you actually start working. I've got a selection of hydrangeas, roses, ranunculus, etc., and I just want to show you this example of a lily. Now if I'm going to arrange it in this, obviously I can't put this massive lily in there, it's going to completely dwarf the arrangement. So you'd need some very strong iron pliers because ultimately the stems are very, very tough, so you have to have some strong wire nippers to cut through. So I'm going to cut them all off as at the sort of longest point, should I say, okay? As you can see, there are some leaves that are left once I've removed the flowers. If you just remove them as well, and what we can do is actually wire them individually and use them in the arrangement. I've just nipped off a little piece here. If you get your leaf, just hold it like that and create a loop in your wire, which I've done so. Put it over the base of whatever you're trying to wire. Take one of the sections and simply wind it around the other. And there we go. So now we get to the real exciting and fun part, and that's arranging the flowers on the wreath. I make them from all ways. There's no real hard and fast reason. Maybe just look at the wreath and think about where it's going. Is it going into on a wall? Is it going on your front door? There's, again, no real hard and fast rule. However, the actual arranging does need to take into account the style that you want. So I'm going to, for this instance, do one that is going to be from the middle out. The reason why I wired my greenery is because that's what I normally start with. Your greenery creates the frame. Okay, so I would take one piece of greenery and pop it in one way, and another piece of greenery and pop it in the other side. And then I would imagine that I'm not going to go up there too high because I've got some bunting in this particular wreath going up there. So if you wanted to put a bit of greenery, I would cut that down. Right, I'm happy with the greenery at the moment. Obviously there's going to be more that I can put in, but I've just created a frame, a sort of idea of where I would like my flowers to go. Right, I'm still not going to put the flowers in yet. The next thing I'm going to do is use what we call fillers. And here we've got some little white berry type of things. Anything that you have in your flowers that are going to be a filler. So these are two long ones, so I want to follow the line up of the ferns that I put in there. Obviously you might have different flowers, and here, before you cut them, I would suggest you measure it. You can see, okay, that needs to go in there, and obviously it needs to be some space left to actually put the stem into the oasis. So I would probably cut around about there. And make sure it's okay, and then if you want, you can hold to the other side, measure it, or just do it by eye. Come down. The great thing again about silk flowers is you can actually bend them. So you want a little bit of a 3D effect anyway. You don't want them just standing to attention. And now this one here has come out the back, but that's absolutely fine. You can actually just bend it back on itself, as you can see. When you've finished the arrangement, you won't even see it. And that will help it secure it to the frame. Because obviously if it's on a door, the door's going to be continually opening and closing, and it's going to prevent it from falling out. So again, we've got our shape there. Now I'm going to think, what is my focal point going to be? So now I'm looking at the center of the arrangement, okay? Got this really big flower here. If you like, just try it. Okay, I think that looks quite great. And then I'm thinking, okay, well, what flower I'm going to put on the top? And I'm looking at the shape and I'm thinking, okay, I think the lilies will be quite nice. So I'm going to lengthen the lilies. Yeah. And perhaps another lily over there. So I've popped the lilies in, and now I'm just going to put the ranunculus in just slightly lower. Don't forget to go either side of the bigger flower as well. One more lily. Just check where it looks good. You want to put it at the side. You don't have to push it in until you're actually happy with where it's going. And that's the great thing with silk flowers, is they're very forgiving. And that's the reason why I use the Oasis, because you get such a lovely finish. There we go. I think that looks really pretty. Okay. Perhaps this, don't think the rose there. Yeah, what about the rose being over there? And that's the secret, to start with your greenery. Get your structure, the two longest point, your central point, and then it's just a matter of filling it either side of it. When you're arranging, pick it up, put it against the wall, see whether you feel where it has the gaps, because ultimately when you're arranging, you're arranging flat, but it is going to be put on a wall. So that's why it's a good idea to check it against a wall, and then you can see where the holes are, where you need a bit more greenery, or if you're arranging it all too much to the top. Just take your time, and as I say, if you've made a mistake, it doesn't matter, just take it out. So now I'll get my bunting and I will tie it across the top. We're just using a little bit of this twine, and I would suggest that you tie it first before you peg any bunting to it. So just pop it through the wreath, tie it on both sides, and then you can peg the letters on. Now these letters are self-adhesive, but I have covered and painted over the lettering, not only to make sure that the letter is secure, but also it seals the burlap ribbon so the burlap ribbon doesn't fray. I've included the Mod Podge recipe. All it is PVA glue and water, and you just paint it on and it dries translucent, so you won't be able to see it. So I'm simply going to pop it on the line here and make sure that I spell it correctly. Spring, S-P-R-I-N-G. I'm so paranoid that I leave some of these letters out. Now, as in typical fashion, my end has taken a wander. I'll find that in a moment. I'll start, but I do need it in order to space it out correctly. So bear with me a moment while I find the missing N. It hadn't gone far. It had just gone under the wreath. Now the way that I secure them on is with the little pegs. They're very, very sweet. One thing with them is they're not very robust. So when you open them, just open in a very small way and then just peg the letters on. Super. Now you should have some additional string left and you can use that to hang up the wreath. Leave a little loop or however you want to do it. You might even have a wreath hanger left over from Christmas. That's just as, works just as well. This wreath is not very heavy, so that will do. Right, we're not quite finished yet. I'm going to pop in a burlap bow, and also in this particular kit, especially for the bigger arrangement, there's also an opportunity to make some paper roses, which look very, very sweet, and they can just be popped in here and there as well. If you don't use the paper roses for this particular project, all the details are on another YouTube tutorial and they're great. You can use them in so many other arrangements and they really look very, very sweet, even on greeting cards or even making a little bouquet of paper roses looks really, really nice. All right, so now we're going to make the ribbon. I've chosen the burlap ribbon. It is wired because it's going to bring it all together. You've got the naturalness of the willow, you've got the burlap ribbon that is mirrored in the bunting. So it just needs to be a hint rather than a big ginormous bow. We want to see how long we want the tail to be. So if you sort of just put it against the arrangement and have a little look. All right, so we're going to start our first loop. So that's 1. Think how big the loops are going to be in relation to the arrangement. Then you've got 2, come across there, 3, and this one's even got enough for 4. All right, now you get your wire and you put the wire in the center of it, scrunch it all down because it is wired, as I mentioned. Take your wire and twist it at the back. Bring it round and twist it as tight as you can. The most important thing is to make sure that this center is as tight as it can be and just keep twisting it around. Can you see that? So if you open it, you can see it's really nice and tight. So we can put it up like that to make sure that we can get it tight. Because it's wired, we can wire it down again. And just keep twisting it. And then we're going to cut it off. So I've twisted it down the stem and we're going to cut it off. And again, think about how you're going to have it on there and think maybe over there. Over there, I think I like it over here, so that's where I'm going to put it. Now the edges here, I'm going to cut. Fold them, and then I cut them into points from top. Make sure your scissors are sharp, and you can see. Again, fold it in half. Can you see that? If you do it this way, the point is going to be, if you're going to cut it up, the points are not going to be in the right way. So remember to take your scissors and it's down. And there you go. Really starting to look nice. So in your package you do have some additional materials that you can use. I have put some birch branches in. I specifically didn't do it before I put the ribbon in, because once you've put the ribbon in you can see if it needs to have any. It doesn't need a lot of this. I think it'd be quite nice just to have a little bit coming out the flowers, add a little bit of texture. Don't need to wire it, just can pop it in between the flowers. Always looks really nice. Starting to look really pretty, and you can see just a hint here and there. Right, so I've popped the little paper roses in, and they just add a hint of colour in the wreath. One thing I will say, if this wreath is going to go outside, you might need to use the Mod Podge to make the paper waterproof, because if it gets any rain on it, it's just going to get all soggy and wet. And another little thing with the paper roses, you can always pop a little gemstone in it as well. Makes it really sweet. So there you have it, a completed wreath. The great thing about wreaths is that you don't need to be restricted to a circle. As you can see here on my back wall, I have various hearts that I've made. I'll pop a close-up and some photographs, and if you're interested in learning how to make them, I will be doing a tutorial later on. So thank you once again for joining me. I do hope you enjoyed the process and are very proud of your efforts.